for these lectures. Now, it is my honor to introduce today's speaker, Rebecca Means. She got her bachelor's in wildlife and wetland science and management from Virginia Tech and master's in science in forestry from Texas A&M. And if you look at her biography, that's all she was doing. She was doing wildlife science and management and forestry and GIS. So locally, she's famous for the Project Remote, where using GIS, she would find the most remote location in, let's say, Leon County, which is not necessarily as remote, but then some were really, really, really remote. And that was more of a free time, or more or less. But Rebecca has worked at Florida Geological Survey, monitoring springs, and then for a long time worked at Coastal Plains Institute, going all the way up to the director. And then CPI does, well, what the name suggests. Now there is also a list of recent projects, but I guess people probably talk about this. But so here today, Rebecca is here to talk about the recently founded, how recently?
Yeah, 2024
founded Conservation Pathways, and she even brought this. So, welcome, and yeah, please know this meeting, this lecture is recorded.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can I do this?
Yes, you can. You can move it. It's. Oh, you want to hold? Okay.
I don't stand still very well. Okay, how's that? Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Means, and I brought my wonderful collection of interns here to entertain you this evening. I founded Conservation Pathways in the fall of 2024 as a way to support high school and college students that were interested in getting into conservation careers. And especially now, that needs a lot of support. So our main focus is with field research experience and communication skills like tonight, and working with professional networking and professional development activities. So, how do I advance this?
I didn't think about that. Maybe this way? Okay.
I'll just talk.
Closer to you. Nice. And I think it should work now.
Okay. Nope. Yep. I mean, yes. I'm not going to bore you by reading this entire slide, but like I said, we were founded in 2024, in the fall of 2024. So we're a very new organization, but in just 2025, so in 1 year, we have made a big impact on students and on our community, including we had like 60 applicants for our internship program last year. We ended up mentoring 19 students last year. We were nominated for the Give TLH campaign, which was a really big honor because the other organizations had all been around a really long time and we had just started. So that's just some of the things that we've done. We also developed a lot of partnerships with other nonprofits in our area and agencies as well. So just a little bit about the field research. So I'm going to kind of introduce some of these big pillars that we work on, and then our interns are going to come up and kind of share their experiences with y'all of their time with us, because that's what really matters, right? So in terms of field research, this is really important because a lot of students coming through our universities don't actually get out in the field and learn about local ecology, right? Or learn about science methods. And that's really how you learn, is by getting outside when you're talking about conservation work. So getting people out, learning about different field research methods, learning about different taxa, so like different plants and animals, and getting that experience with our local region is the main focus of our field research. And we do that because we have a couple projects that we work on, and you'll hear a little bit about some of them maybe soon. But then we also help other organizations with their research projects. So there's a, well, I'll let you guys talk about that part. Clifton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Clifton Lewis. I'm a senior at Leon High School, and I am doing an internship with Conservation Pathways through the externship program at Leon. I'm here to talk to you tonight about field research. I've lived in Tallahassee my whole life, but this externship with Conservation Pathways has really shown me the amount of stuff that I don't know about the area. My first field research example is we did a project at the FSU Coastal Marine Laboratory. We went out on the boat in the Gulf and say netted, and we saw a large variety of creatures such as fish and shrimp. And then we collected water samples, as you can see in this picture with the net, and we took them back into the lab and looked at the zooplankton under the microscope. Something else I've completed this year is dip netting in the Munson Sandhills. We surveyed for striped newts before a captive release, so that was fun. And then we also went on the Wakulla Springs watershed tour, so we started at Cascades and followed the water path all the way down to Wakulla Springs, stopping at a lot of different points. I think that the watershed tour really helped me realize the importance of taking care of the water or everything around Tallahassee. It's made me more aware of what I need to protect and how I should act in the city. Okay, so field research, not only just going out into the field, but it's helped me connect a lot of things in my life and made me realize I've had a better understanding of the regional ecology, such as from the watershed tour, my connection to the city. And something else we've been working on is having a presentation board with we're just trying to show people how, like, the different organisms in our environment that rely on fire, so that's been very interesting. And then I've also come in contact with a lot of special species during this externship, including the cowfish, which we found at the FSU Marine Lab. And then we've also done work with bumblebees here in Leon County. And there are 5 species of bumblebees in Florida, and 2 are petitioned to be listed on the Environmental Species or Endangered Species Act. So, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia Sherman. I'm a senior geology student at Florida State University. And Conservation Pathways has just kind of been one of the most fulfilling opportunities that I've had in college so far, in my life, honestly. This is truly just the best organization with the best director, but the Conservation Pathways has really given me some direction of how I want to apply my knowledge and my love of geology with my knowledge and love of the environment. So I've been able to kind of walk away from this year internship with an idea of my pathway going forward in life, which I want to pursue ecological restoration. And the field research that we've been a part of throughout the year has really put that into perspective for me. So my first example of some of the field research that we've done is a horseshoe crab monitoring survey through a citizen science program with UF's IFAS. And this program was born because of the realization from birders on the coast of Maine that red knots were a type of bird, weren't migrating to the coast of Maine anymore because they weren't feeding on horseshoe crab eggs that they were laying on coast, and that kind of posed a lot of questions of what were the horseshoe crab populations like, and the fact that we didn't actually know much about horseshoe crabs. So it started this program now in Florida, and it's a citizen science program, so it just gives people from all backgrounds the opportunity to get hands-on involvement with their community, with their science community, and being able to develop these science communication skills with the public and informing them what they're learning through the citizen science research. So it's been an incredible opportunity. I've learned a lot about horseshoe crabs. I've grown up with them, being from Florida, but just never really knew them so personally like I do now through this internship. And then the second project that I personally am very fond of is a collaboration that we're doing with the Apalachicola Riverkeeper to restore some of the sloughs along the river. The point of the project is to reverse the damage done by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers when they dredged the original Apalachicola River. They put all of that excess sediment into the sloughs, but the sloughs are really important because they bring nutrients from the river into the floodplain. And so it's really important to reverse that damage so that we can kind of heal that circle and cycle of nutrients and organisms that all that rely on this river and these sloughs for that. So we've been able to work with them to help fortify the bank by planting cypress trees and planting native grasses. And it's just, again, been an incredible opportunity to get out in the field and combine these passions of mine to be able to see real impacts that we're making and get our hands dirty a little bit. So field research has truly been just one of the most incredible parts of this internship for me. So thank you guys for listening.
Fantastic. So one of our other pillars is about communication, and this is a big passion of mine. Historically, scientists have not been really good at communicating our science. I feel like that is changing now, and we are really trying to help that change even more. But a lot of us in science and in wildlife, specifically for me, I got into it because I loved working with wildlife, right? And I loved working with trees. But if we don't share this information with the communities where we live, if we don't tell people that the striped newt is going extinct or that our longleaf pine forests are disappearing, then people aren't going to know. And then if they don't know, they don't care. So communication is a really, really strong and important part of what we do at Conservation Pathways. And we're doing this in various informal and formal ways, and written and oral as well. So everything from helping create social media posts for Conservation Pathways and doing presentations like this, as well as writing blogs, and we do various other types of things that our other interns are going to share with you. I think this is my new favorite way of presenting, where I just like say a few words and then I pass it on. You don't have to clap for me, but I appreciate you. What happened to your A? That's on me. I edited the slide. That's all.
So I'm Carolina Espejo. I'm a senior at FSU studying environmental science, and I will be continuing at FSU for my master's in the fall.
Woo!
So as Rebecca was saying, we do many forms of science communication, and these are just some of them that help us try to cater what we're communicating to different audiences. So the first one is social media content. As Rebecca was saying, we make blogs about all our different experiences in the field, as well as infographics. So if you follow our Instagram, you may see that we do Fun Fact Fridays, and each intern will pick a topic to research and then create an infographic about it. And then we also table at many different events. We've done the Tallahassee Science Festival, the Fire Festival at Tall Timbers, and the Wiggum Rattlesnake Roundup. We'll also be at the Tallahassee Earth Day Festival and the Marine Lab Open House next week. And these experiences help us to cater the information to different audiences, that being different age ranges and differing attention spans. And then we also host field trips for many different organizations and classes. Us interns will lead different stations as well as educational explanations. And then we also do a lot of outreach, as Olivia was saying, with the Horseshoe Crab Watch project. We're walking up and down the beach and people are coming up to us asking what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that's us actively participating in outreach with the community. We also host workshops to grow our skill sets. I did a GIS workshop and that helped me prepare a presentation and to teach this information to my fellow interns. And then also presentations, that being conferences and talks like this. I actually got to do my first professional presentation alongside Rebecca at the League of Environmental Educators of Florida's annual conference. So all these different forms of communication have been gearing us with skills that we're definitely going to use moving forward in our environmental careers.
Hi everyone.
One of the areas.
There we go. Oh, my knee is also down, but it's okay. My name is Grace. I'm a little bit different than the traditional intern that we have at Conservation Pathways. I am actually a FSU Sustainability Fellow, which is where I will be at Conservation Pathways for this spring semester. And I'm awarded a small stipend to essentially connect the FSU community with a community partner. And with that, I am doing a grant writing project with Rebecca directly. And this is really important for science communication because, as Carolina was saying, we have to talk and kind of slim the language down to understandable audiences. And so grant writing is a big part of that. Through this, I really developed a unique understanding of how grants impact nonprofit work in particular, and I think that grant writing is an essential skill set that everyone needs to develop, especially if they want to go into this field. Further, I, with Rebecca, have worked to create funding initiatives and unique projects for future classes of interns, and really make sure that, reflected through a student's understanding, we can create a better intern cohort going forward, even though I would personally consider this current intern cohort perfect, and I'm forever jealous that I'm not one of them. Additionally, like I was just saying, science communication really needs to transform into universal communication, and grant writing is a really good example of this because people who are reading these grant applications aren't always a scientist. For example, I'm not a scientist, I'm a political science major, so I work more on the humanities side of things rather than the environment. So I have been learning all this environmental terminology and the science terminology and kind of transferring it to a more accessible audience. So I think this is a really great field to work in for that. And then lastly, the grant landscape has been changing as funding initiatives have shifted. A lot of the times we used to get grant money from federal and state levels where money was a little bit more spread out, but now it's transferred to a lot of private foundations. So we have to start gearing our grant research and our grant writing towards that. However, we've been doing a great job, and I'm really excited to see where these new funding projects will go in the next couple of years. Thank you.
So lots of different kinds of communication going on. The other one of our pillars has to do with career readiness and creating this new generation of conservation leaders. And so that has a variety of ways that looks. Some of it is professional networking, so meeting professionals either in the field or in a more formal environment, or the middle picture there is a pizza party that we host for our interns, where we're down at Gain Street Pies, Oyster City Brewing is there, and we're all just gathering around for a couple hours learning about different people's career paths. And so one of the important things is demystifying the idea of being a conservation professional or an environmental scientist or a hydrologist or a professor. And so being able to understand their career path, and also one of the talks I give a lot has to do with like how circuitous some of our routes are. So just kind of reduce that pressure of thinking that you need to know what you want to do since the time you were a kid. So having those interactions with professionals. And then we also do some workshops. We've done interviewing skill workshops and cover letter workshops. We've had a fabulous person helping us with headshots, Spencer Hopkins, who's in the audience today, because that's a really important thing that a lot of high school and college students may not have, is that professional looking picture for their LinkedIn profile, or if they're giving a presentation. I know I don't have one, so helping them get those kinds of professional skills and confidence for being a conservation leader in the future. Lily. You really don't have to. Thank you, though.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Lily. I'm a third-year environmental science student at Florida State. So when you first look at this slide, it might look like a field research slide as opposed to a networking slide. Coming into conservation pathways, I definitely expected to get experience in both. I knew we were going to get out in the field. I knew about like the pizza parties we were going to do. I didn't realize how much overlap there was going to be between them. So I have a couple events here from left to right. That was a day when I went out with some biologists from the Amphibian and Reptile Conservancy. In the middle was when I shadowed some professionals from the city of Tallahassee doing water sampling at Lake Hall. And then on the right was when the four of us went on a bird survey with a farm bill biologist from Quail Forever. So yes, these are all field research, but at the end of the day, I didn't realize how much of that time spent working with these people would be occupied with asking all kinds of questions, realizing, oh, I'm sitting right next to you and you kind of have the job I would like to have in the next 5-10 years. And so that kind of opened the door for these really interesting conversations and kind of learning the balance between working alongside someone, learning the techniques, picking up on skills. Okay, we're using this water sampling device. And then at the same time, in these moments where we're waiting for the water sampling test to filter, I can kind of squeeze in some questions like, what was your pathway to conservation? Or, something as simple as, what was your major? Or what did you study when I was your age? Or what was your journey from where I am to where you got to be? And it was honestly very cathartic to ask these questions and get to know these professionals, because it really reassured me that everybody really does have a different pathway. So Nick, for example, who ended up working as a farm bill biologist, he was a business ag major. And so it's all these little things that you pick up on and you learn, and it just really helped me become prepared to enter one of those careers and realize that, okay, these people that I look up to, these jobs that I'm looking forward to, hopefully, are occupied by people that are just like me. They were once, nerdy undergrad scientists, and we have things to relate on, and they're approachable people that you can ask questions to. It's not just some sort of like, stoic scientist idea that I kind of had in my mind. So I think that really helped me getting out, getting to work with these people. It was a very special experience. I took a lot out of this internship that I don't want to say that I wasn't expecting, but I guess I wasn't, because I feel so fulfilled. It has come to a close. I feel like I really can take so much away. It's definitely something I'm going to be talking about for years to come in job applications. It's going to stay in bold on my resume. So yeah, that's kind of my experience with networking.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Hopkins. I am also a senior at Leon High School, working with Rebecca in Conservation Pathways through the externship program. I will be graduating next month, and then starting in August, I'll be going to the University of South Florida, St. Pete, for marine biology, specifically the Honors College. So I started with Conservation Pathways back in August of last year. Again, when I started the externship class at Leon High School, and I've really gained some amazing opportunities and experiences. Specifically tonight I will be talking about networking and professional development. So starting on the left over here, you can see us on a boat with Todd Beavis at the FSU Marine Lab. We were taking nets and gathering and releasing a lot of marine animals, and we even took some back to the lab and looked at them under microscopes. In the middle is we're talking with Miranda Miller over Zoom about her experience with conservation storytelling, specifically through video and photography. Conservation storytelling and using visuals like video and photography is really important to conservation. You may not think it is, but it helps connect the general audience with topics that may be a little more complicated, like topics and issues that may be a little more complicated to communicate. So visuals really help with that. And then on the far right over there, we're meeting with Zoe Cross at the Apalachicola National Estuary and Research Reserve, or ANER. And the research reserves are really important to sustaining and protecting Florida's estuary ecosystems. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be going to USF starting in August, and I found out within the past few weeks that I got into a very selective Gulf Scholars Program. They only let in 20 new applicants per year. So I will be working very closely with professionals like professors and community leaders. And some may be very intimidated by this going into college next year, but because of the networking and professional development experience I have gained working with Rebecca and all of the other interns and everyone we've interacted with, I have definitely gained a lot of confidence to tackle all of the opportunities I will be given next year. Thank you.
So one of the things that Conservation Pathways does is organize the intern swap program. We have 7 different organizations that come together, and it puts all our pillars of field research, science communication, and networking. So us interns get to go be hosted by the different organizations, and we're getting exposed to what it would be like to intern at these organizations, as well as what the professionals that work there do. And then we're also creating a network of peers, because we're seeing the same interns from the different organizations at all the intern swaps throughout the year. So one of the ones that I got to participate in is the indigo snake survey with the Nature Conservancy in their Apalachicola Bluffs and Ravines Preserve. So we were walking up and down the preserve looking in and around Gopher tortoise burrows for this reintroduced population of indigo snakes, so that they could monitor the population and make sure that it was assimilating well into the ecosystem. So that's just one of the intern swaps that we got to participate in, and they're really good experiences putting together all our pillars.
Some of the other ones on the picture is red cockaded woodpecker work with Tate's Hell Wildlife Management Area. That's coming up in May, which, I mean, that is not the time to go to Tate's Hell, but that's when it's offered. So Tate's Hell, and then I think that's Tate's Hell too. And then St. Vincent's National Wildlife Refuge is part of our program, so our interns get to ride a boat and learn about barrier island restoration, or managing barrier islands, which is a whole other ball of wax, I guess. And then tomorrow we are hosting for the intern swap up at Birdsong Nature Center. So we'll be welcoming all the interns in the morning. So I don't feel like I really need to talk about this slide, since I'm pretty sure you get the picture of how we impact our students. But we are a nonprofit community organization, and we do have an impact in our community. And I think this is really important, because these are some ways that might be of interest to people in terms of getting involved and supporting other organizations. So one of the things we mentioned earlier was participating in community events. So showing up at these festivals make these festivals stronger, right? It not only provides communication skills for our interns, but supporting these organizations. The Wiggum Rattlesnake Roundup that was last month is one of them, and provides a really good example of how important it is to support local events. So this used to be a rattlesnake roundup, where people in the community would go out and gather all the rattlesnakes they could find, bring them to the festival, and they'd like compete for like how big yours is and all this, and then they'd kill them. And that obviously is not very sustainable for rattlesnake populations, and Bruce Means actually did a big research project about that, went and talked to them, and this is a great example about science driving change, except it was the communication aspect that was really the thing that did the change. And so now the Wiggum Rattlesnake Roundup is actually a wildlife festival. So they are trying to get as many conservation organizations as possible there. So being there to support that is really important. Because we are teaching about local ecology, we are also teaching local ecology to lots of other of our community members. So we host field trips that again helps with communication skills, helps with learning content, because sometimes we learn content right before the field trip. And we give field trips to community organizations, student groups, a lot of college classes and things like that. The other thing is, we're here in Tallahassee. We have 2 huge universities here, and there's a lot of students that are coming through our town. Those students are not necessarily integrating into our town, right? Those students are not necessarily getting out beyond Wakulla Springs State Park. And so what we're doing is helping these students that are coming through our universities really get out and understand what makes the Big Bend region so special, so unique, and so precious. So learning about the biodiversity of our area. So then when they go elsewhere, when the terns migrate to other places, they're taking that passion with them and become advocates for the Big Bend region, for the pitcher plants, for all of the things that make our area special, including the bumblebees. The other thing, right? So the nonprofit world is not really known by a lot of people. It's very misunderstood. What makes nonprofits run? They're businesses. A lot of people don't understand that these are businesses, these are corporations, or understand what makes nonprofits run successfully. And so part of what we do is teach that. We teach grant writing, we teach social media analytics, right? Like, okay, we want to reach people, how do we do that? And so we're creating students that understand the importance of nonprofit work and what nonprofits need, no matter what they do when they go out in the world, whether it's a conservation organization or a human service organization. Having a deeper understanding of nonprofits benefits this community as well as every other community on the planet. Another thing you might have gathered from some of the experiences that they've talked about is that we help other nonprofits fulfill their missions. So we work closely with Apalachicola River Keeper. We helped them with some slough restoration work in terms of planting, and we've also helped them with International Coastal Cleanup Day, which they are kind of in charge of for Franklin County, and we take on one of the cleanup sites for them. We work closely with Birdsong, bringing students up to Birdsong Nature Center, which before we came along, they didn't really have a whole lot of interactions with students in our universities or in our high schools. And so helping like spread the word of different nonprofits. And like the Florida Trail Association was building a bridge at Torreya and needed help hauling lumber. And so we just have a huge contact of students from all the interactions we have with student organizations in the high schools so that we can help provide able bodies. Because let me tell y'all that I don't know if you guys know, how this generation, like our college students, are so dedicated to community service and to help. And they want to. They're like, I mean, seriously, I thought y'all just drank all the time. It's only when they turn 21. Which was yesterday. Just saying. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they get up at 6. Well, y'all met at 6 in the morning to go help Quail Forever with one of their projects. I mean, they're out there wanting to help. So connecting those students that want to help in the community with the community partners that need that help. It's one of our magic skills. And we have a saying, there are many pathways to conservation. Because we are really striving to engage people from all different majors when it comes to our interns, but just in our community as well, because if conservation is going to be sustainable and effective, it needs to be more than just scientists and biologists and hydrologists. We need to engage people in the political science field. We need to engage the business people, which in my head is like everybody that's not a scientist is business people. I'm learning though. But like these are the people that are the statisticians, and these other like math people are the people that are able to create a monetary value for ecological services, and that helps conservation. The marketing people, the communications people, the journalists, like we need all of these people understanding the importance of conservation, understanding our regional ecology in order for conservation to be sustainable. This picture right here is of one of our first art pathway intern. She's a Master's of Fine Arts student who is speaking right now at the FSU Museum of Fine Arts because she's defending her thesis. And so she's going to be working with us, helping us design an art pathway for our program. Because there again, like art, like visual and musical art, that reaches people in a different way than data. So having these artists on board and understanding the importance of our area is also very important. So how can you get involved? I know you all have been sitting here wondering this very question. I mentioned professional development workshops. So we're always looking for people to help with these things, whether they have skills or experience in interviewing people, so they can come and like do mock interviews so that our students can get that experience, or resume writing. What other kinds of stuff can we do? Networking. So any of those kinds of career-ready skills, we're always looking for people to help us with that. Shadowing opportunities, if you know somebody or you are willing to take on some interns for a couple hours just so they can see the kind of work that you're doing, that's really important. As you heard quite a few people talking about that importance of experiencing the work that other people are doing and then also being able to ask questions about it. Sponsorships. I've got Alchemy. But we're always looking for help engaging our business partners in the community. So if you know a business that you think the work that we're doing would really resonate with them, we're always looking for those kinds of partnerships.
Oh, I took that picture.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, thank you. Photography. I mentioned before, Spencer Hopton did headshots of our interns. So we're also, one of the hardest things is getting photos of you doing the work that you do. So having people along when we're giving field trips or when we're out doing our research projects just to document things. Or to take pictures of the animals like the bumblebees when we're working on these projects. And speaking of bumblebees, there is a nationwide monitoring program for bumblebees. As some of y'all may know, the pollinators are in decline. Bumblebees are one of those species. There's a lot of lookalikes. Carpenter bees are one of them, but there's a lot of other lookalikes for bumblebees. So people think, oh, there's lots of bumblebees. Well, it turns out there's not. And there's a lot that's not known about bumblebees. So there's a nationwide monitoring program that we are a part of. We've adopted a cell to take on monitoring. It's at least I forget how large it has to be. We're going to test it out tomorrow on our intern swap. But we're going to be hosting some monitoring events for collecting data for Bumblebee Atlas. So if anybody's really into bumblebees or doesn't know if they're into bumblebees yet, there's an opportunity there. So this is how you can get in touch with us. We've got a newsletter, we're on the social media, and if you would like to support the work we're doing, you can become a Pathways patron and help Lindsay catch that bullfrog. But yes, our newsletter, we send it out like quarterly, and that's when we'll talk about our events that are coming up and opportunities for getting involved in various things like the Bumblebee Atlas or horseshoe crabs. And that's it. Does anybody want to ask our interns some questions? Yes.
I love hearing random facts that people learn that are like their new favorite random fact. So I would love to hear like a random fact about nature or a local animal that y'all learned about. Like if you could say it in a few minutes. I just want to like info dump on me. Like what you learned about being an intern that you're so excited about.
Oh, you're ready. She's ready.
This one,
And you can add. It can be the same species, and you can add a different fact. So don't get
this has kind of been one of those like random fun facts that has like become an inside joke, honestly, amongst us. But I really love it because I'm a geology major, and so everything that I look at is like millions and billions of years old. But the horseshoe crab hasn't changed its like atomic structure or like anatomic structure in like 450 million years. It is like nearly identical to what it looked like 450 million years ago. And they just kind of, they populate in these little like subsects, and there's like a couple different population. I think we have like what, 6 or something like that around Florida of different like horseshoe crab like families. But they figured something out, and they figured out evolution, but
That's geologic time.
yeah. So that's my favorite. I think that one's pretty cool.
Okay. I think thinking about our like poster board, definitely one of the coolest facts that I was always rattling off when we were presenting with that was that there are over 300 species that use the gopher tortoise burrow in one way or another. So they either create their own burrow off the side of it, like the Florida mouse. I can't think of any more specific species right now on the spot, but gopher frog, yeah. They're pretty easy species to remember. Because they all got gopher in the name. But that was really cool. I knew the gopher tortoise was important, but having to like regurgitate that information over and over and seeing how excited people and children got over it, I realized like, oh, this actually is very cool. Like it really solidified for me how important they are.
Yeah, I want to add on another fact about gopher tortoises. I know a lot about gopher tortoises because my mom used to work with the gopher tortoise program at FWC. So I know a lot about gopher tortoises, and I always love sharing gopher tortoise facts. But we learned a lot about fire ecology throughout the entire year with Rebecca and Conservation Pathways. And gopher tortoises are keystone species. So they're vital to forest ecosystems. And as Lily said, there are so many species that can use their burrows, and that's made abundantly clear when there are controlled burns or natural fires in the forests, and the animals can use gopher tortoise burrows as a temporary home, as protection, and they all coexist within the burrows. Like snakes and mice can be in there at the same time, and honestly they're just worried about surviving a fire. So they all just coexist in there, and the gopher tortoise is fine with it. I just think they're an amazing species.
Building off of that a little bit, maybe the fact that bumblebees go inside the burrows when there's a fire as well. But my main fact that I was going to say was, it's maybe not my favorite, but it's that the wasps inject their larvae into the woody stems of the trees and then it becomes these like, I don't know, like amorphous little bubbles in the trees, and it's quite horrifying to see how many there are.
You really don't like it.
Puts it into perspective how many wasps are flying around you that originated in these trees.
Yeah. So I didn't know that. I'm a little scared now. But my favorite fact is probably from the Wicklow watershed tour, where Florida, the northern Florida is probably one of the only places in the world where we have like quote unquote disappearing rivers or creeks. So creeks go underground and develop into this like multi-100-mile like water tunnel system underground, and it pops back up into the springs. So the spring system in Apalachicola is basically a system of like 1,000 like disappearing creeks in Florida. So I think it's really cool.
Adding on to the bumblebee scenario, there's a type of type of bee that we see around, the carpenter bee. Is that correct? Okay. That we see around, and we're always like, oh, look, there's a bumblebee. And Rebecca always says, but does it have a shiny hiney? If it has a shiny hiney, it's a carpenter bee, not a bumblebee.
I said that in the high school AP bio class this week. It was so great.
What's your
You
favorite?
started.
Yeah.
You start?
What's your favorite fact, Rebecca?
I don't have a favorite
Yes,
fact.
you do.
I really don't know. Well, I learned earlier this year that we only have 5 bumblebee species in Florida, which surprised me, and that 2 of them were petitioned to be endangered. And I think that's pretty interesting because I was one of those people that thought we had tons of bumblebees, but turns out we only have a few species. So if you go out west, they have a lot more bumblebees than we have here in the east. And then up in the Appalachians, that's where like the high diversity of bumblebees are in the southeast. So they like that cooler, higher elevation habitat, which is why we only have 5 of them here. That's my story. Any other questions? Yes?
The indigo snake, I assume the big black, was that something that was caught on that?
Like, who was fast enough to catch it?
Well, the indigo snakes are actually pretty docile. They weren't really, that was actually the only one that we saw that day, but it wasn't running away. It was just around the burrow, and one of the interns that was there was able to grab it, and then we put it into a pillowcase until the group that had all the monitoring materials came over, and then we swabbed it and we sent the data to the lab. But it wasn't really running away. It was just chilling around the burrow.
Because it is in the winter time, so
Yeah.
the indigo snake surveys are in December and January, so oftentimes it's not as warm, so they are a little more docile then.
How's the population doing?
So on the Nature Conservancy property, which is where that they have had their experience, they're doing a captive breeding and release program, and they have documented breeding in the wild. So their populations are increasing there on the conservancy property. Everywhere else, it's a different story. But yes.
So did someone stick their hand in the gopher hole?
No, it was coming out of the burrow, so it was on its way out, and then somebody saw it and grabbed it. But it wasn't like slithering super fast.
What about other things in there like the mice? And how do you know they're there? Do you have cameras with probes?
There are cameras that people use. We didn't do that. We actually were using our phones as like mirrors, so we were using the sunlight to shine it into the gopher tortoise hole, and then you could see if there was something in there. There was another burrow that actually had a diamondback rattlesnake in it, so we left that one. But yeah.
Yeah, there are cameras that are on like flexible tubes, kind of like colonoscopy tubes that go, and you can kind of do a colonoscopy with gopher tortoise burrows. They're really long though, and the cameras, the light is low and that sort of thing. Another way we know of the species that are in gopher tortoise burrows is because of all the mitigation that has occurred in our state from development, that people have to actually excavate gopher tortoise burrows, and they're very diligent about doing so, and they find all kinds of species that way too. Yes?
I was curious. So, two of you guys are from Leon High. Do you have a question for you? Not
Okay.
from them. Is it specifically you work with Leon High, or it's just a coincidence?
It is more of a coincidence because, well, kind of. So Leon and Leon and Childs are the only two schools in our area that have an externship, like a formal externship program.
Rickards does too.
Does it? I didn't.
We get
Okay.
Rickards externs at the Mag Lab.
Really? Okay, because those were the only ones that I.
Or
knew
maybe
of.
they weren't formal.
Okay, yeah. So that's how I brought on the high school students in the first place, and these were the first ones. So, and they've done a really good job. So I'm willing to take on high school students again. So no, it's not necessarily that it has to be that externship program. It's just that that's how it happened.
So the Wacola Labs, did you work with them for that watershed tour?
Yeah, so one of the kind of like the content knowledge things that we focus on for our students is understanding the connections, right? And one of them is the connections from Tallahassee down to the coast. And so we work with City of Tallahassee. They went out and learned about the stormwater, which I don't think any of us really talked about. You talked about sampling, but we also did a tour with them from Cascades and the retention ponds, and so learned how the City of Tallahassee deals with their stormwater and tries to clean up the macro waste, whatever, the trash in the retention ponds as it filters down to, I think our last stop was Lake Henrietta with the City of Tallahassee. No, the City of Tallahassee, we stayed in like the FAMU Way area, but we went to multiple retention ponds there. And then we did Wakulla Springs Labs tour we started at Cascades and then we jumped to Lake Henrietta and on down to Wakulla Springs, and then we did the Marine Lab tour to understand that section of it. So kind of the whole stream.
And you did sampling?
We didn't do any water sampling, but with the Marine Lab tour, we went out and we took water samples so we could see the plankton back at the lab. But we have not as yet done any water sampling. We actually had a grant in 2024, an EPA grant to do some water sampling, but it disappeared in January of 2025. So we did plan to do some water sampling, but we did not do it as part of this program this year. Yes?
The Apalachicola slough restoration.
Uh-huh.
Could you describe the basic process of the theory of how that's improving the bay or the rivers?
Yes. Oh, do you,
It's up to you. I can talk a little bit.
you both, all y'all can.
Yeah.
You want to do it? Because you did it already. You want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll go bzzz if you're wrong.
So basically, Olivia already touched on this, but the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dredged the main part of the river, deposited a bunch of sand in the sloughs, and so basically what I have done out there with them is one of these times we took a boat out to, I believe it was a slough on the East River. Spider-cut slough. We planted a bunch of grasses. So when you come up to it, it's just a massive like coagulation of sand. There's nothing there. You have the cypress on either side, and it's just a barren patch of sand. And there's obviously nothing productive going on there.
It was spoiled.
Yes, yeah. So we planted seeds. So I remember it was bahia grass, I believe.
It's like cola bahia.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there are a couple different kinds of seeds that we planted, and then actually most recently when I went out, it was me and some like external volunteers that I brought along. We actually went back to that same slough. I didn't show you the picture, but the grasses had grown. It looked really cool. It was very nice. Pretty much the entire sandy spot had now been covered in these grasses. And then following up on that, we planted, I think, about 33 cypress tree saplings. So ideally, it's just restoring, fixing up these little patches of the river that have been disturbed, and just kind of need some housekeeping. But yeah,
And I can add to that in terms of the bigger picture is that when the Corps dredged, they put, as Lily and Olivia said, they put the sand on the banks of the river, and sometimes that where they put that was blocking a natural slough that takes water from the river, takes it out into the floodplain where the tupelo trees and everything are, and then carries the water back to the river, which then goes down to the bay. So when they basically plugged a bunch of sloughs.
We opened those up.
And so yes, the river, Apalachicola River Keeper got a huge grant to do a pilot project on 3 of those sloughs. And so they went in and excavated all that sand. They pulled it up, stuck it on a barge, which was then taken to a boat landing, which was then taken somewhere else to be used. But they excavated tons and tons and tons of sand out of the slough to open it up for that water to move through. And so because they removed all that sand, there was a lot of barren sand everywhere, right? And so they don't want that to be there, because when it rains, it'll all go back down into the river. And so that's where the planting and all of that came through. They also created a huge mountain that's called Sand Mountain on the Apalachicola River. That's all spoil, and what it did is then it eroded down the backside and plugged the floodplain that way. So it wasn't plugging a slough, it was plugging an entire floodplain down the backside. And now they want to dredge again, so just be on the lookout. Apalachicola River Keeper will be putting a lot of information out pretty soon about this idea of dredging again, which they did not follow through with what they were supposed to do 20 years ago in terms of removing the slough and removing all that sand, and so they can't be trusted. One more question?
One last question.
One last question.
I have.
Do it.
I'm thinking about the role of advocacy for nonprofit groups like you guys.
Yes.
And, this whole thing, Ron Sapp and Axelrod about the water in the Woodville wells.
Yes.
And how we could all support that. Maybe we should have them come give a talk here.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Because they've done a pretty good job of getting their message out through articles in the papers that we sort of all read.
Yep. And I wonder, because I wonder if Doug Alderson has any storytelling about that as well, because he lives down in Woodville. I'm not sure if their wells were one of the ones that were tapped into, but yeah, I think that would be a really, really good talk to hear.
All right. Thank you for coming, and thank you very much for presenting and sharing this.